have been working my whole life to get to the top. You lost. You cheated. Say it. Say you're not a witch.
It's no secret that Amity Blight is one of the most captivating characters in the Owl House, and there are many reasons why. Her awkwardness when she begins to develop feelings for Luce is adorable and charming. Her development as she grows past her nature as a bully and becomes more comfortable with herself is cathartic. I'm sure we can all think of a time where we projected our insecurities about ourselves onto another person, and watching Amity apologize to Willow and Luce gives us the hope that we too can grow as people and make amends to those we have hurt. There's a ton of good discourse about Amity's internal struggles, but what's most interesting to me about Amity is how the show uses her as a tool for its world building. More specifically, how it uses Amity's behavior as a case study for a greater issue in the story, the illusion of a meritocracy. Within the world of the Owl House, we're presented with the idea that success is guaranteed if you put in the work, and those that work the hardest gain elite privileges. This is the philosophy of a meritocracy, that each member of a society can rise up through the ranks purely on the basis of their own ability. However, as we discover more about the world of the Owl House, as we follow characters like Luce and Willow who struggle within the rigid confines of the system, and as we learn more about the true nature of those in power, we see how this facade of a balanced and equal playing field causes serious damage to the people who have to live within it. Throughout the season, we repeatedly see the consequences of those trying to forge their own path, and the punishments for breaking out of the mold. Ida is the paradigm of rebellion against the system, and she faces relentless persecution for refusing to conform. However, even people like Amity and Lilith, who do excel and succeed within the confines of the system, are actively pushed into becoming worse people by the implicit nature of their environment. They still suffer under the system, albeit in a more subtle way. So join me, friends, as we take a look at Amity Blight and the lie of meritocracy. Above all else, Amity respects and values hard work. As the youngest of three from an affluent family, she has a lot riding on her to succeed. The carefree and reckless attitude from her older siblings means she has to overperform to make her strict parents proud. She keeps up in her studies, keeps in contact with a high-profile mentor, and even does volunteer work for extra credit. I mean, who wouldn't though? Braxis needs to be protected! These traits, on paper, seem more than reasonable. Why shouldn't she work hard to excel and follow what she wants to do? Well, here's the kicker. Because Amity has devoted her life to working hard in her studies and eventually becoming a member of the Emperor's Coven, she has allowed her pursuit of success to overtake her personality, and this manifests some rather ugly side effects. For one, because she puts so much pressure on herself to work hard and be the best, she reacts extremely poorly to failure.
Not so fast! I'm not letting you get away so easily. I want my badge!
The tiniest slip-up on her part would be a devastating blow, and any success by someone other than her becomes an insult to her core identity. Similar to another popular animated bully character with a massive insecurity complex, Amity's view of herself is based purely within the confines of her success. As she puts it herself,
I don't want to come off as cruel, I just can't show weakness.
This is why she develops a deep loathing for those who, in her view, are lazy or cheaters. Amity believes that since she has been working hard and doing well in school and putting in extracurricular work, the failure of others within school is entirely due to their own fault. But that reductive mindset blatantly overlooks hundreds of factors, such as Willow being placed in the wrong class. Willow represents a mistake in the system, a failure to accommodate for differing learning styles and abilities. As Amity ties her identity to her success, any moment where her own abilities come up short is immensely embarrassing, and she keeps a concerted effort to keep anything that makes her look weak a secret. This is also why Amity is so distraught over Luce's actions in the duel. It was an opportunity to display her earned prowess and ability, but instead she was humiliated in front of her mentor and the Coven by someone she viewed as inferior. And here, the Owl House uses Amity's frustration to convey the guilt faced by those who devote themselves to a system that promises success for those who work hard. We see multiple examples of people who don't fit the clean-cut mold, but it's through Amity that the show displays how the rigid mold is enforced. Amity ties her own identity to her success within the system, and so she is incentivized to hate those who do not fit, If someone can succeed with magical abilities without following the rules of covens and excelling in school, then all the hard work she put in is forfeit, completely meaningless. And rather than allow her identity to be so easily dismantled, she instead lashes out and perceives the outcasts as not real witches. In doing so, she enforces the status quo, which, as we later discover, is the end goal of her path. Amity's main driving goal at the beginning of the season is to attain a spot in the powerful and respected Emperor's Coven. They're built up as a hyper-elite team of witches, in close communication with the highest authority on the island, the height of magical achievement. In addition, unlike any other coven, they are allowed to practice all forms of magic. On the surface, this seems perfectly reasonable, a worthy goal for the people who are willing to put in the time and effort to master the craft of magic. But one thing to remember is that they are only the best as defined by the system. Only those the Emperor's Coven deems worthy are allowed to join. This means that, despite the initial premise, it's possible that someone who works the best may not be chosen. As the show progresses, we learn more about the insidious nature of this group. Though they can practice all forms of magic, they only use this ability to enforce the Emperor's will, to arrest and punish those who go against the grain.
The Day of Unity is fast approaching, and other teams have bound many rogue witches to covens.
This begs the question, what is their true purpose? Do they just meaninglessly perpetuate their own existence at the expense of others? That would just be ridiculous. This is how the show displays the true contradiction behind the Emperor's Coven. The Emperor's Coven presents the illusion that those who wish to be the best mages they can be should work hard and be accepted to serve the Emperor. But instead, once they are accepted in, they must continuously justify all the work they underwent to get there, specifically by punishing those who don't fit within the system. That's not to say that they're evil for enforcing the status quo, although the system makes it super easy to be evil. But that's the tragic part, isn't it? That the system rewards ruthlessness rather than a strong work ethic. Instead of a promise of be the best that you can be, more realistically, it's a dogma of be the best at the exclusion of all others. The core of this false meritocracy, as determined by Emperor Belos, is to ensure its own existence. While we have very little information regarding Belos' true goals, it's telling that even in his personal absence, the flawed system continues to perpetuate itself. One of the main reasons why the system continues to function is because of people like Ida's rival and sister, Lilith Clawthorn. Lilith shares a ton of parallels with Amity. The two of them were both enraptured by the allure of becoming the best and pushing the potential of their magic. Lilith herself stated that she wanted to join the Emperor's Coven to make the world a better place. But she, like Amity, was pressured into becoming ruthless and bitter in her quest to attain success. It's telling that the Coven intentionally pitted the two sisters against each other, a subtle hint that the Emperor's Coven desires loyalty rather than studiousness. Failing to be recruited into the Emperor's Coven would have been a devastating psychological blow to Lilith. While Ida could care less about labels and organizations, Lilith sought the validation and success that would come with such an invitation. She sought to preserve her identity, and cursed her sister Ida to ensure a victory. In the same vein that Amity disregarded others in order to maintain her facade of superiority, Lilith's competitive nature pushed her to do terrible things. With her position as the head of the Coven, Lilith's life essentially belongs to the Emperor.
If you fail, you will be stripped of your rank and banished from my Coven. You do know what happens to Covenless witches, don't you?
Belos is able to use her status as a bargaining chip in order to goad her to do whatever he wants. From what we've seen so far, that mainly entails catching wild witches and other outcasts, and more importantly, maintaining the illusion of the Emperor's Coven as the best magic users in the land. When her pupil Amity is challenged by Luce at the convention, Lilith secretly buffs Amity, because in order to enforce the aesthetic of the Emperor's Coven as the best of the best, Amity had to win, even if it meant cheating. If Amity failed the duel, especially at the hands of a wild witch like Ida, the illusion of the Emperor's Coven as the elite would be shaken, invalidating all of Amity's and by extension Lilith's dedication. This is the true nature of the Emperor's twisted and cruel lie of meritocracy. He promises power and prestige, but in truth, his illusion is a brutal predatory trick that ensnares earnest hard workers and mutates them into his loyal enforcers. All the work and time they spent getting to that position becomes a shackle by which Belos controls those within the Coven.
I have been working my whole life to get to the top.
Lilith, think! You've given your entire life to this Coven. You can't lose it.
And that's honestly really sad. That Amity's fate, after her relentless pursuit of maximizing her potential and dealing with grueling expectations, is to be burdened with continuously validating her own position, by punishing those who didn't do exactly as she did. She faces a grim existence, where the worst parts of her personality are not only allowed, but actively rewarded, and where she would have to constantly vindicate her life choices to herself. But fortunately, that's not going to happen. Amity is slowly learning to grow and be better. One of the most telling moments of her character growth for her is when Luce shows her her own form of hard work after their duel. And while it doesn't come as naturally to her, Amity can clearly see that Luce is trying her best against hopeless odds. This is an important moment for Amity, because it shows her that while she does well within the system, there are others who struggle in the system that work just as, or even harder than her. She recognizes and respects Luce's determination, and thus unbinds her oath. Amity's journey into Willow's memory has her confront the prejudice inherited from her parents, paving the way for her to heal her sense of empathy. And lastly, as Amity becomes more comfortable with Luce and the gang, she has detached from basing her self-worth on success and status. She is beginning to discover that she doesn't have to be tied exclusively to her value in a corrupt system. With that insight, Amity can be free to be the best version of herself by no other standards but her own. Thank you so much for watching. Special thanks to everyone who recommended this show to me. It was an absolute blast. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on how Amity is going to change in Season 2. I'd love to hear them. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like, and if you want to see more videos like this in the future, consider subscribing. You can also follow me on Twitter at StarfruitGrady. Stay safe, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.